with nothing to play for, does it matter how the Penguins perform in the remaining games? Dane?
Well, I'll say this. I loved the approach that they took going into Denver tonight, which is that they were going to rest their guys who somehow all of them mysteriously participated in the Olympics and came down with a Sochi flu. You know what? Great. Let Sidney Crosby and Chris Kunitz sit out. It's a road game. You're not ripping off any Pittsburgh customers. I'm sure those guys will be back for the last 3 home games. I love the approach. I love the fact that Dan Bilesma allowed some other guys to take center stage. Obviously, Brandon Sutter stepping to the front more than anyone. I thought it was a good thing for the organization, a smart thing for the team, and I would have said the same thing if they'd lost this game 8-0.
Alan?
Well, what we found under Dan Bilesma is it doesn't really matter how they're playing down the stretch. This will probably be the worst team this will probably be the worst record in March and April they've had under him. It's 9-7 currently going into the playoffs. And as we've seen before, they've had great records and gotten beat in the first round, and they've had great records and won the Stanley Cup. I went and looked it up real quick. Here's their records under Bilesma going down the stretch: 14-3-2, 22-4, 14-4-1, 12-4-2, 11-6-3. They're good every year going to the playoffs, and it's no indicator of how they're going to play in the playoffs. The indicator of how they're going to play in the playoffs is who they're playing and who's playing for that team.
Chris?
Well, you ask them themselves, apparently, if everybody's going to mysteriously have these upper and lower body injuries and not play during games, apparently the Penguins themselves, in terms of the results, don't care. But I'll say this. This is Rob Rossi from Dan Bilesma, right from his lips after the game here. We're trying to win hockey games, but we've really had to focus on the parts of our game and how we're playing and getting ready for playoff hockey. That's more important than getting a result. And he talks about getting into a playoff hockey here down the stretch. And the results, of course, the results in every way, shape, and form don't mean anything. They could lose all 3 of these games coming up. They can win all 3 of them. That doesn't really matter. Whether the eye test and in certain parts of the game are there, that might be more important. But really, I don't know how much a carryover, honestly, especially if you have guys like Evgeny Malkin and maybe Chris Letang, I don't know, coming back that aren't playing this week, that so all of a sudden are playing next Wednesday in a playoff series. I don't care if they lose all 3 of them. It doesn't mean they're going to win game 1 or not.
If anything did matter tonight, they played their 1-2-2, and they played it very solidly. They kept the Avalanche frustrated. They kept them to the outsides, and I think that does matter because any of those guys, the role guys, if they happen to get into playoff games, are going to have to be counted on to do that, to play sound defense, and they really did tonight.
The Pens' next game is against possible playoff opponent Detroit on Wednesday at the Consol Energy Center. We're also talking about paternity leave this week and the controversy over Mets player Daniel Murphy taking the allowed 3 days off for his wife to go through pregnancy. Let's Go Yushko says the world needs to take a step back and realize that athletes are still people with lives no matter the contract. The Subway Final Word. We'll be right back.